Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Joe Unlimited, aka Stranger Danger, and we're gonna do something a little different this time around. I just kind of wanted to talk about a subject, pretty much a topic, kind of been up in the air since I guess the since Dark Souls came out, Dark Souls 1. Now everybody seems to wholeheartedly agree that Dark Souls 1 is a lot tougher than Dark Souls 2. Most people agree that's the case. But one of the topics that people disagree on is whether or not Demon Souls, the original Souls game, if it actually is tougher than Dark Souls. Now, I feel this is kind of what puts the community at a divide, because most people who I hear who prefer Demon Souls better were the first adopters of the series, the players who made it possible for Dark Souls to even exist. It would be no Dark Souls, plain and simple, if there was no Demon Souls. Demon Souls was out for years before Dark Souls, and I felt that the players are the reason that Dark Souls 1 and 2 are here, and they kept it alive. And one of the things that kind of frustrates me is when people, they say that PvP is a second or afterthought for the series, that is mainly based off of story, lore, and and it's pretty much an afterthought. It's like something extra. Like, you don't really need the PvP to fully experience the game. And I wholeheartedly disagree. That's one of the reasons, the PvP aspect of it is one of the reasons that the Souls series survived so long as it did. I mean, it went on for years until Dark Souls 1 came along. And it wasn't the story. You can beat the game. Yeah, you can beat the game, new game +1, +2, 3. We did it all. Back then we did it all, but it was the PvP. And a lot of you guys, veterans from Demon Souls, in World 4.1, that was pretty much where you squared off. In Dark Souls, it was the Undead Bird. Well, for us in Demon Souls, it was the Area 4.1. I can't think of the name. It escapes me right now, but that people know who played the game know what I'm talking about. The Area 4.1. But we do it there, I mean, for hours and hours throughout the day. I mean, that's when I turned on my system, that's where I went. Pretty much the story didn't interest me anymore, but the PvP. But my point is, the PvP is a vital aspect of it. And in Dark Souls 2, we kind of see that with the new developers, they kind of leaning more towards the story. But Dark Souls, in my opinion, really isn't a story-driven game. It's more about experience, and the PvP is a big part of that experience. But the thing is it easier? People who come from Dark Souls, is it easier when they go back and play Demon Souls? Well, this is my opinion of it. Demon Souls started off as it was a first experience. The first pioneers of the Souls series played Demon Souls, and back then you can't compare someone, let's say today, who beats Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and they're a hotshot, and they go back and they just run through Demon Souls. Well, that's a whole different player than it was back then. Most players today, I say at least 90%, are well informed. They know what this means, they know what that means. They have guides, they have YouTube. I'm talking about complete walkthroughs on YouTube. I mean, full detail. They even have some of the veterans and pros, I mean, who beat the game inside and out, who've done everything, holding a hand and teaching you the ropes. And and just taking you through the game. Yeah, it seems easy, and not to mention the glitches and exploits that can get you everything that you need now. Back then when we were playing, we didn't have all that. When you summon somebody in your world, that person was just as clueless as you were. This was a whole different experience for the people who first adopted the game. You didn't get somebody who came in and knew where everything was at. You got somebody who was just as lost as you, and probably was desperate, looking for help themselves. And that first experience is something that that sets it to a whole new difficulty, because they remember how it started off. They didn't know nothing. There was no game facts posted up telling you do this, do that, have this weapon. There were no copy and paste builds as they have today. Pretty much you can go on YouTube or anywhere and you can find a build that's overpowered or something that works to your liking. I believe that Demon's Souls was the game that you needed to play to understand there is a such thing as making a build. Now Dark Souls 2 blows that completely out of the water. It's all about leveling up, getting levels. In Dark Souls 1, in Demon's Souls, excuse me, in Demon's Souls, you had to make a build. And one of the things I really miss about Demon's Souls, it was more emotionally connected. When you played, you felt more emotionally connected to your items, your equipment, everything, because you had to earn them. You had to earn your equipment back then. Yeah, as time went by, there were glitches years later, but when you first started, you had to earn it. That one sword you got and you leveled up to plus 10, plus 5 or whatever, you used that throughout most of the game. You didn't just throw it down as soon as you got something else or go run and get this sword. You had to go out and get it yourself. And I find that in Dark Souls, it made the game a lot easier, because you just have all these people who, and there's nothing against getting help, but when you think that you have a true perspective of Demon's Souls, coming from Dark Souls and coming from this time compared to years ago when that came out, you don't have the full experience. You never will, unless you played with the internet off. You didn't look at any kind of game facts, any kind of YouTube videos, nothing like that. Just go in blind. Let that be your first Souls game. Then you can say you got a true experience. Then you can compare the two. But until then, you can't really compare the two. Can you remember, if anyone remembers, when no one knew that for example, no one knew that the Blue Blood sword attack increased with luck? No one knew that. Like, why would you think that sword increased with luck? You wouldn't know that. You just you learned that though. It took me months of playing it, and I learned that. You probably didn't even know what the blue blood sword was. This game definitely took a different turn. I felt that Demon's Souls, and I was a first early adopter, I felt that Demon's Souls back then, it was a game that you played. It felt more of a solo kind of game, solo act. You were in the world, you were all alone. It had a lonely dark feeling to it, and that's what kind of intensifies the experience and the lore and everything. And every so often, you may summon somebody. But now if you look in the Souls games, a lot of people, what they're doing, they won't clear a level, they won't experience a level, they won't even fight a boss by themselves now. It's like, it's just co-op crazy. You just gotta have some people. I've even been in some worlds where they won't go and fight the boss with just you and them, 2 people. They have to have 3 people, themselves and 2 other phantoms. And that's just a long ways from Demon's Souls. It does make the game a lot easier if you go back and play Demon's Souls. If you take your friend, you're on Skype, you go in there, you're talking. Back then, people weren't using Skype. Maybe a few were, but for the majority, you were texting through the text chat on the PSN. You were texting people with the chance that you might get backstabbed or a phantom might come in and kill you. You never know. It just was a chance you took. To send a message was a big chance, a big risk, and you had to look over your shoulder and watch your back constantly. Constantly, you had to do that. And one of the things about Demon Souls is that the phantoms, the connectivity, it was almost constant. People would be constantly invading you. They would constantly just keep breaking in, coming after you. I can remember myself as I'm definitely one of those invaders that just constantly just keeps breaking in, because that's what I like to do. And I remember I had that happen to me in Demon Souls. This guy, he just seems to be so persistent. He would just break in every 15 minutes. He would break in, wouldn't let me go through the level. He was just always there, and that's what it was like. With the connectivity, you always had somebody breaking in and chasing you down, and that's just the way it was. I think in the end, when it comes down to it, maybe honestly, everyone who were the original players on Demon Souls, most of those people were on the PlayStation 3. They were on the PlayStation 3, and the other consoles and platforms didn't get to touch Demon Souls at all because it was exclusive. And I think it comes down to basically which Souls game you picked up first and played. That's gonna be your favorite. If you picked up Demon Souls and got the full experience from the very beginning, then you're gonna think that that was a lot harder, because it was. Back then, you didn't have help, you didn't have all these walkthroughs, you didn't have all this stuff. YouTube wasn't booming like it was back then. If you played Dark Souls, then that'll probably be your introduction to the Souls game. I mean, honestly, there are no games like a Souls game. On the Xbox, there are no games like a Souls game. So people coming into the Souls game era on the Xbox, that was like, I don't know, that was like getting hit over the head with something. That was their first experience, a wake-up call that, hey, there are other hardcore games out there that will beat your butt. And pretty much, and the PC, definitely with the PC, there are no games like that out there. Those guys experienced Dark Souls 2 for the first time. Well, they experienced the Souls game for the first time with Dark Souls. But pretty much it comes down to which game you play first. With this, I'm not gonna go into the mechanics and all the differences and stuff like that. I'm just gonna talk about the experience. That's what this is about, the experience. Not that we know that the AI in Dark Souls is a lot smarter, a lot more reactive than Demon Souls. But we're just talking about the experience. I mean, how did you feel when your world tendency changed on you, when it got pure black? What about those events that they used to have, like during Halloween? The whole month of October was pure black tendency. Or I could be wrong, it could have been a couple weeks, but definitely if you got online, it was pure black, nothing you can do about it. Those kind of experiences were definitely something that left a mark on my memory. I remember that. You guys, just think about those experiences that you got the first time you played either one of those games. But leave a comment and let me know what you think. Why do you think either one is the harder one or the better one? And maybe we can make another video and we could talk more about it. All right, until then, subscribe and stay tuned.